Um, this is my fourth time making the video. It's a continuation of the video that I did earlier. I was actually proud of the way the video came out. It wasn't completely a mess. I didn't cry, so I'm proud of myself. Just want to. I have a lot of things to say. I just don't know where to start. You're probably wondering where I met him. I met him on Matchmaker.com. That was back in 2003, when the internet was just starting to come into focus. I mean, I was on the internet all the time. I loved it. I was on Match.com. I was on Matchmaker. I was on, I don't know, there was so many, I can't remember. I loved being single in my 20s. Sorry about the traffic. There's nothing I can do about it. Anyway, you know, moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico is the last thing on my radar. I never wanted to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. But we met online, and at the beginning I didn't really have any interest. Then, and at the time I was living with male roommates, and one of the guys that I was living with, what was his name? Vahid. He's from Iranian. We just got on so well together, you know. He took me to the hospital when I had my pain in my side that ended up having to get my gallbladder taken out. I mean, we're really good friends. And I started talking to my ex, and prior to moving to New Mexico, I had to go home to Ireland to 2 weddings in Ireland. 2 of my sisters were getting married, and turn that off. My twin sister was getting married, and so was my 3rd oldest sister. I actually have 7 sisters and 3 brothers in my family. So I went home to Ireland, and really wasn't home that long. I was home about a week. I don't know, maybe not even a week, a couple of days. And it was just great to be back. It was great to see everybody. That was actually our last reunion we had back in Ireland. The very last time we were all together. I look a lot better when I put makeup on. I just haven't put any makeup on. But I will do videos with makeup, and you'll see that I do look pretty when I put makeup on. I have to whiten my teeth. Anyway, we went back to Ireland. My brother picked me up. My mom was there. And I remember on the way home, my mother wanted to go for cocoa. And, you know, back then I always thought my mother drank coffee. I never really knew my mother drank cocoa. But she wanted cocoa, and now, of course, I wish we had. But at the time, I thought, you know, it's stupid. You know, you think you've all the time in the world. And you don't. You don't have all the time in the world. So that's one thing I regret, is not going for cocoa with my mom. I wish I had, but I wish she had been honest with me about her sickness. I didn't know she was sick. I had no idea. My mother had. I didn't know. I wish I had known. But my mother was a very private person. She didn't like to, you know, tell anyone about our problems. She was a really, really wonderful person. She was just great. I mean, she never lost her temper, never got mad, always loved us, which is amazing for a woman that has 10 children. Anyway, it was fine. The first couple of days were fine. And then we had Bernie's wedding first, my sister Bernie, who lives in Ireland, who lives in Cork. You know, everybody was excited about the wedding. I had picked out a dress, a blue dress. I don't even remember the dress I wore for the wedding. I have to look at it. And then I couldn't understand why, you know, Teresa, my twin sister, and Bernie couldn't have the weddings at the same time. I mean, why pay for 2 separate weddings? You can have the wedding. Anyway, that didn't happen. So the whole house had been clean. You know, my 2 brothers had, my brother John and my brother Eddie had built 2 new houses. You know, just things had changed. The yard was clean. They had knocked down the milking parlor that, you know, we used to milk the cows in when we were younger. I wish I had known they were going to knock it down. I would have taken pictures of it. I have a lot of memories in there. Don't have any pictures of it because it was knocked down. Anyway, I just remember the yard being really clean. And I remember the milking parlor wasn't there anymore. I remember Eddie had a new house. John had a new house. It was just a really happy time, you know. And everybody was feeling sorry for me because I guess everybody had their other halves and I didn't. I mean, I was seeing Paul at the time. I just started seeing him. But, you know, I didn't invite him back to Ireland. We just started talking, you know. So much going on. I mean, you probably think I'm all over the place when I tell stories, but before I went back to Ireland, I actually ended up, I'm just rewinding a little bit. When I was born with an Audi, and I was the only one in my family who had an Audi, like an Audi belly button, and I hated it. Like I hated it. And, you know, I always wanted to get rid of it, but, you know. But then when the whole Britney Spears thing came out, you know, the belly button surgery, there's a certain name for it, became popular. And I remember one day getting up early, just getting up, and because I had to go to work, I was working at IHOP at the time. And there was this thing on Good Morning America. There was a doctor. His name was Dr. Bruce Nadler. And he was in New York. I didn't know his name at the time. But I just saw him on TV and I didn't really get his name. I had to turn off the TV. And then I had to go to work. But it was still in my mind. I had it in my mind, you know. It was the whole Britney Spears thing. And everybody wanted a belly button like Britney Spears. I just wanted a regular belly button. at the time. So it was actually a couple of months later that I was, I started researching on television or on the computer. And I found the doctor, and his name was Dr. Bruce Nadler. And he was in Smithstown in New York. I don't know if you've heard of it. And so I decided, I had told my landlord prior, the landlord my old landlord that I used to live with, I had told him that I was going to sell my car so that I could get my belly button done. And he's like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you going to sell your car again? I was like, because that's what I want. Anyway, we had a fun time, me and my ex-landlord. We used to, this was in my 20s. We used to go out, to take me out to dinner all the time, lunch all the time. And I'd just have to wear a short skirt and heels. And I enjoyed it. I mean, I loved it. Everybody see this short little fat man and see me with my heels and my little mini skirt. And I just loved it. I have to get my nails done. I try to do them myself. Anyway, what happened? Oh yeah. So I researched the doctor online and called them. And I ended up getting the bus to New York because at the time there was a bus leaving from, I don't know, downtown. And you could go to New York and back for $40, which was amazing. So you could go really early in the morning and come back late in the evening, and it would drop you right in the center, in New York Center. So I took the bus to New York, and I absolutely loved it. You spend 4 hours on the bus and just, I went to New York, and I went to Smithstown. I don't even know how I got there because it was out there in nowhere. And I went to the doctor. I went for my consultation. And I don't know, the operation, I guess, was supposed to be a couple of $1,000. So I was trying to see how I was going to come up with a couple of $1,000 to do the operation. It's so loud. Anyway, while I was there, I was just sitting in the waiting room, and I wish my quality of the video was better. There's no night light, for making it better. There's a small light, but that's it. Anyway, there was this thing on the table where you fill out your name, your address, your phone number, and if a TV wants to get in contact with you, they'll contact you and you can be on TV. So I filled out the piece of paper and I put my name, my address, my phone number, my email, and I just left. I don't even remember the consultation. I remember nothing. I just remember filling out the paper. And then I got back to Boston. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from 48 Hours. I was going to get a peek and wash them earlier. They're messy. Anyway. It's juicy. And it's messy. Mm. So I ended up going to New York again, and I ended up being filmed by 48 Hours. I was hoping they'd buy me a freaking flu bathing suits, bikinis, but they wanted me to buy the bikinis. I didn't want to buy bikinis. To be on the show, they wanted you to buy the bikinis. Show off your new belly button. They used to watch me, out film me out jogging and running and doing different things. I never got to see it because I ended up going back home to Ireland. I guess they were doing before and after. Was it just after? They were doing after shoots of the belly button operation. That's a whole other story. I can talk about that afterwards. But I just wanted to include that because that's what I did prior to going back to Ireland. And I don't think I ever got to tell my mother about the belly button, which is weird because I don't know. I mean, I think I did, but I think I was nervous about telling her. I didn't know what her reaction was. I shouldn't have been nervous. My mother would never get mad. But she was very old-fashioned, so, I didn't know what she was going to say. These peaches are good. Got them at Trader Joe's. They're good. I'm going to finish my peach. Okay. I just wish the lighting was better. But if I wait for tomorrow to tell my story, I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. And when you have like a train of thought, you have to kind of do it right there and then. I also write a lot. But I've always wanted to start doing my own videos and making videos. So I was back in Ireland. Let me turn up the volume. I think I turned it down. Sorry. I know how annoying it is on YouTube when you're listening to someone and the volume is up and then it's down and it's up. I don't know. I hope the volume comes out perfect. I just turned it up because I thought I turned it down. Anyway, I went home to Ireland. I don't really remember a whole lot. Everything was a blur. But the wedding was in Garryvaux Hotel, which is a beautiful part of Ireland in Cork. It's outside Cork, East Cork, as far as I know. And that's where a lot of the weddings are held in Ireland, is East Cork. And the wedding was great. One time I went into the bathroom, the women's bathroom. I was in there, and my mom was in there. My sister was in there, my twin. And my mother was just dripping sweat off of her, like just pouring off of her. I didn't know why she was dripping sweat. I had no idea. I just couldn't understand it. It's like as if you go in the shower and then you get out of the shower and then, you're wet. That's the way it was with my mom. And I didn't understand why. It's like, I just saw my sister, my twin, trying to, get the sweat off of her. And I was so confused because at that time, nobody had told me what was going on. Like no one. I was completely clueless. The only thing I figured was before the wedding, you know, I had been talking to my sister Bernie, and Bernie's great. Like she's a really good sister. Thanks, Bernie. The reason I don't talk to Bernie much is because she keeps asking me about the kids, and I don't want to talk about the children. It's very hard. It's hard for me to talk to my family about the kids, you know. The reason I'm opening up is because it's so much easier just to talk. Even if you think no one's listening, it's so much easier to talk about it, you know. And you're sharing your story with a load of strangers, and, you know, everyone, at the end of the day, everybody's going to have an opinion, you know. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Anyway, I remember I talked to Bernie. I said to Bernie, I said, you know, why didn't Mother get a perm in her hair? Because my mom always got a perm in her hair for weddings. You know, it would make her hair look nice. And Bernie had said to me, she said, Geraldine, she goes, Bernie's hair doesn't, or Mammy's hair doesn't take a perm anymore. And that really struck me hard when I heard that. And just before the wedding, like a day or two before the wedding, there was also another incident. We were at home and someone's running. And we were in the kitchen. Or in, like, we have the kitchen and then we have like the extension of the kitchen where everybody sits down. And you know, when we were younger, you used to have to put 2 tables together for everybody. It's not the kitchen, it's the eating area. I don't know what you call it. And I remember we were in there and Nick Kelly, which is a neighbor, he's the son of May Kelly and Mike Kelly, which used to be, you know, neighbors that my father would go visit a lot when we were younger. I remember Nick Kelly came into the house. I'm sorry about how green the picture is. I'm going to try and make it better, but it's just because it's nighttime. Seeing if I can make it better. That's better, isn't it? Anyway, Nick Kelly came into the house and I remember my mother asking him, she's like, where's your mother? And he said, she's out in the car. And I mean, I would have thought my mom would know at the time, but and my mother was like, why is she out in the car, And I just remember my mother going out to see his mom, May Kelly, and I followed my mother out to the car. And I remember my mother looking in the driver's seat of the car, the window was down, my mom was looking in. And I was just looking at my mother at the time. And it was almost like I was reading what my mom was thinking. I was reading what my mother was thinking. I mean, May had, developed really bad Alzheimer's, I guess, where you lose your memory, and I don't know, it was some disease like that. And, she wasn't in her mind. She was just kind of not herself. She used to be this woman that would talk a lot, and she just wasn't. And I just remember my mom looking at her And she wasn't saying anything. She was just looking at her. And at the time, I was looking at my mom because I was looking at my mother's reaction to me. And it was sad because, at the time it was a reminder that we're all getting older, and she's probably not around anymore. Like May Kelly's not probably around anymore. This was back in 2003. 2003 is a long time ago. It's 2019, so it's like 16 years ago. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that, and I'll get to it in a second. Anyway, we were at the wedding, and everything was fine, except I told you my mother was in the bathroom and she was dripping sweat out of sweating. And I didn't understand why she was dripping sweat. So then we were out, the meal was fine, the dancing was great. And I remember the end of the night, my mom was waving to me, because I had come to the church with my mother. And I remember my mom waving at me to come home with her. Like, this was weddings in Ireland go on until like 2 a.m. I don't even know who the band was or anything. She was just waving at me to come. So I went home with my mother. And the rest stayed at the wedding, just having fun and enjoying the wedding. And the next day, my mom slept in the room all day. And we were outside the door. And I do have a picture somewhere of us outside the door, just talking, hanging out. Then I remember my father talking about going fishing that night. This is the night after Bernie's wedding. And Teresa's wedding was supposed to be a day later, or 2 days later. I don't remember. Anyway, she was sleeping all day. I don't know why I didn't go into the room and say hi to my mom, but at the time you think you have forever. You just think you have forever. Watching all these people go by. I just thought I had loads of time to talk to my mom. This was our first time together after a long time. So I was trying to catch up with everybody. And then there was all the excitement of the 2 weddings. And so I went home with my mother. The next day, the next day she slept all day. And we were outside talking. My father was talking about going fishing. Everybody was home, all the nieces and nephews and, all the grandkids. And my brother had his 2 kids from Germany. And at the time, they didn't have any English. They just spoke German. And I didn't speak any German. And then my brother, his wife was pregnant at the time. So I guess Eugene had asked John's wife to watch the two kids. And then he wanted me to stay up there too, instead of like me watching them with my mom. Anyway, the children were screaming. It wasn't a good thing. The kids were screaming. Nobody understood what they wanted because they were speaking German. I'm waiting for that car to leave. I have to turn on the car for a while, otherwise the battery won't start. If you just leave it going, the battery won't work. Anyway, so when the fishing trip was over, I went down, I saw my mom cleaning the kitchen, There was tension because my oldest sister was complaining to my brother about something, a tie or something, but I have no idea. It was some stupid ass thing they were fighting about. I just remember my mother cleaning in the kitchen. And I just went upstairs to my brother's old bedroom, which was upstairs. And I just went to bed. And the next thing I remember is waking up in the morning to my twin sister screaming in the kitchen. She was screaming that my mother was dead. This was back in 2003, back in July 2003. And I didn't know what she was talking about. Because when you're asleep and you're waking up in your sleep and you're hearing someone screaming, and so I remember getting up out of bed, and I remember going downstairs, because in my mind I was thinking, what is she talking about? I can wake my mom up. I can wake her up. But she was gone. My mother died like the day after my sister's wedding, and a couple of days before my other sister's wedding. So it was like 2 weddings and a funeral. So that was hard. And then, I stayed a couple of weeks, thank God. Thank God for Aer Lingus. They let me change my flight. They didn't give me a hard time at the time. It was a bereavement, so they allowed me to change my flight. They didn't charge anything. And car going? I don't want the battery to die. Sorry about this line. It's the line. Anyway, I'll talk a bit more about that later. So then after that, I ended up moving to New Mexico. And Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'll talk more later. I'm sorry about the pause. I'm just getting tired. I'm in Albuquerque and I have to drive back to Santa Fe tonight. I have to take my car in tomorrow to get the front part fixed. Because the side bumper keeps coming out. I'm just tired. That's why I keep taking so many pauses. I'm just tired. Let me talk tomorrow when I get my head here. Have a good night. Thanks for listening.